Hey everyone, you're listening to Party Time, My Golf Story with Kevin Walsh and whatever special guest he has today. You can check me out on episode 9 of the podcast. Today I'm wearing Grayson clothes while I'm out practicing because I believe in look good, play good. And follow me on Instagram, Sophia Warren Golf, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers. And the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com. Now here's your host, Kevin Walsh.
Around the world on the professional level, in the United States, in Australia, in Asia, in Europe. He has experienced the highs and lows of life. And I guess it's not unfair to say, in many ways, golf saved him at some of the most difficult times in his life. Grant Price is our guest. A couple things, some housekeeping things. I ask you all the time because I told the story about how we got kicked off YouTube and then we got put back on. It's very important. Trust me, this helps us a lot. If you could hit the subscribe button and the like button, that goes a long way for us with the analytics and everything, because that's how sponsorships are all figured out. So if you could just take a moment and do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Big thanks to Party Drinks, the title sponsor. If you're looking for an alternative to something that's named after a crustacean or a time of the day, try a Party. Available on the Suncoast, all around Florida, all around New England, and we are expanding. This is a golf drink for golfers, by golfers. You can't believe a cocktail in a can could taste so good, but it does with Party. And the reason is because we have the finest spirits. And if your dream is to live in on Florida's Suncoast in the greater Sarasota area or anywhere in Southwest Florida. And if your dream is to live in a golf community like Lakewood National, where we broadcast from, which is the number one golf community in Florida, no better real estate agents to take care of you than Vince Visicaro and Gene Walsh from suncoastdreams.com, a division of fine properties in the greater Sarasota area. The information on them will be scrolling across the bottom of your screen, as well as many other things. All right, let's bring in the man of the hour.
Hey,
Grant Price.
Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you again. It's been about a month since I caddied for you. Was I any good or was I a bum on the bag? You let me know. Be honest.
No, you were great, man. Of course. Are you kidding me? No, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, the difference is you can connect as a player, as a professional to a fellow very low and very good player. You know, you just talk the same kind of language, right? So, I mean, it's different. You know, when you're talking about taking lines to run off hills on slopes on greens, and people have got no right looking there, that's a whole different ballgame. But you know, you were great.
And so
you brought everything into perspective for me.
Thank you. Oh, can I call you sometime when I'm not feeling too good about myself, when I'm making bad reads or something? You can say, no, it's really not. Hey, man, where are you joining us from? Where are you tonight?
So I'm currently actually up in Bartlett, Chicago right now. I'm up here with my girlfriend for her 40th birthday. Her family's up here. So I thought I would bring her up here so we can, spend the time with them.
That sounds good to me. But home for you is where? I mean, I know you've lived all over the world, and we'll get into the backstory, but where are you based right now?
So I'm based in Bradenton, Florida, and I think this is the third or fourth continent that I've lived on. So it's pretty crazy when you're traveling a lot.
Yeah.
Especially reforming a new life in each country, right? That's the whole difference.
Well, that's true, but you have the grit to do that, and you have the desire to do that based on some of the life experiences, some tragedies in your life, bad accidents, a scare with cancer, which I'll get into in just a minute. But let's go back to the roots, the beginning. How did golf find you, or how did you find it?
Oh my goodness! I think golf was in my bloodline and lineage from birth. Really, I mean, my father was the first of three brothers. who, got to scratch. My father was a very, very good golfer. His brother Tim went on to be a professional golfer, and of course Nick went on to be a former world number one. So there was a long line of golf in our family for a long time.
I got to admit, I was embarrassed when I didn't connect the dots, and because I'm not often caught off guard, but I picked up when I caddied for you the British accent, so I just assumed you were from the UK. But then when you mentioned the former Rhodesia and Zimbabwe, then I thought about, I'm like, what? It kind of sounds like Nick Price. I'm like, do you know him? And you're like, he's my uncle, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But
well,
it's not
I don't
the first
about stuff like that, man. It's just is what it is. I don't like being boastful of such things,
I got it, but I know he's a great man. He's been very good to you, and let's just talk about him because he just came up. All I hear about Nick Price is what a great guy he is, and you told me he's all that and more. What's your relationship like with him? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we can pick up the phone and chat anytime. We can text anytime. I think we're both pretty busy, so we're both pretty bad at doing it sometimes. But when we do, we catch up really well. I mean, it's, he really is as good as everyone says, if not better. So I mean, it's hard to explain. I mean, he really is that good a guy.
How impactful was he with you in your golf when you started getting good? I mean, did you aspire to be just like him? Was he your role model?
That's a hard one because, my father was a great man, really a great man. And, he sacrificed a lot to do what he did and to get where he got. And my dad could have played cricket internationally, I think, for 3 countries, So, I mean, at one point he was a phenomenal cricketer. He was a great golfer, really fantastic fly fisherman, but my dad was a very powerful influence in my life. And sometimes, as we all are, as we're young, we don't necessarily, know it or appreciate it as much as you should. But, everything my dad ever told me about golf, Nick basically echoed, so when I started going down the individual sports road, because I was a big team sports player for a long time. And, I went down that individual road, and my uncle was doing very, very well. Nick was playing phenomenal golf all over the world. And, it was hard not to look at him and be like, wow, I want to do that, and, I used to talk to my dad about it a lot. And I know my dad helped me proceed and advance very, very swiftly. My mom and dad used to do everything to get my brother and I to sports and to make sure we were fully engaged in what we did. And any questions, anytime, they were always there for us. So it was looking at my father and looking at his little brother succeed and looking at how strong my dad was and looking at how powerful Nick was on the golf course. And I was just like, I really want to do that. I'm kind of fed up with team sports and, some of the politics that go with it.
Grant Price is our guest here on Party Time, My Golf Story. Brought to you by Party Drinks. If you're looking for a great drink alternative on the golf course, try Party. And if your dream is to live in a golf resort or a golf community in Southwest Florida, no better Golf Pro real estate team than Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro from SuncoastDreams.com, a division of fine properties in the Sarasota area. So born in Zimbabwe, but primarily raised and educated in Britain. What was that like?
Correct. It was hard for me. My brother remembers a lot more of Zimbabwe than I do. I remember from all the pictures my family shows me, I get all those flashbacks in the brain. But, I was young. I was school age when we moved to England. My, civil war had happened in Zimbabwe. And, it was a very dangerous place. So, my parents thought, okay, it's going to be a better opportunity starting in England. So we all moved to England. We had, I think, 4 suitcases and 4 of us, and probably $500, and that was it. It was like, go start a new life. So my parents worked very hard, very, very hard to try to get where they were and reestablish their lives and give us a future as children. So, I know my brother and I are very appreciative of that.
So when did golf really hit you? When did you start getting into it? And when did you think you were good and then maybe you had a future and you wanted to try the professional ranks?
That's a tough question. So my dad, used to take us to the pit, the pitch and putts, the little par 3 courses, and we would go out there, my brother and I, and he would show us what to do and how to do it. And we just kind of whack around and, 11, 12 years old. And we were into all the team sports, So I think I really kind of got over and past all the team sports, but about 15, 14 and a half, 15. And then I really focused on golf. And in that time, in 3 years, I got to not only representing county levels and national level amateur golf, but, getting to play some of the really big events, which was, it was fun. I mean, I didn't think anything of it. I kind of sacrificed everything for golf, so I was at the golf course all the time. My parents would drop me off and I'd be playing from sun up to sundown. So
this is the life of a competitive golfer. It becomes an obsession. If it isn't, it's not going to work. Right.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I used to not want to come home until the sun was down. I would sit in the parking lot when it was dark, waiting for my parents to pick me up. And I knew they were on their way, and I'd always stay close to the clubhouse. And, the members were always very good. They'd stay around and look after us as junior golfers. And it wasn't just me. It was, it was all the junior golfers, So I was very fortunate to grow up in that kind of golfing community at a Royal Golf Club. So we were, it was really fun. And I even remember when I started driving, I'd go into the parking area, put the headlights on and hit golf balls in the car lights, and just walk out there and try to find them. We had a little shag bag, and that's what we did. So, I mean, it was, it really, I think when you get bitten by the bug, it's tough, man. You're all in.
Oh, no question about it. So when did you turn pro? How old were you?
So I turned in 2000. I think I was 23 when I turned pro.
Did you feel ready? I mean, be honest about that. Or did you just feel like now's the time? But what I'm trying to get at, did you have the confidence like this is going to work?
I think everyone's always a little trepidatious when you set out on that journey. You're always a little uncertain, a little anxious, but you're motivated, right? And when you're motivated and you want to do stuff, you find a way to do it. And I don't know if anyone ever knows if they're ever ready or not. You just play your game, right? I mean, let's be honest. It's like, coming down the last 9 holes of a tournament, you're in contention. You don't really think about other people. You kind of live in your little bubble and you just do what you do, and you hope you make enough putts. And that's kind of, it's kind of how it was, just set off on it and try.
Is there just a massive stark contrast between high-level amateur golf and then professional golf, even at like the lowest levels of professional golf? Just the attitude of the players, how you're received. What's your experience?
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference. When you start doing something and you change from fun to financial, there's always an impact. And some of my friends that I was then competing against, they were, should we say, not as friendly as they once were. And then, of course, you always have your circle, and you're going to, phone them up and you chat and you say, hey, well played, or they give you the call or whatever. And you're shooting text messages and chatting and catching up and, messing around. And you have those friends. And then you've got the ones that you were, that were in your circle. And all of a sudden now it's like, well, you're taking money away from them. And attitudes shift, stresses shift. And there's a lot of stressors in professional golf, and I know you know that.
Oh yeah. It's game on. I mean, some guys they're literally fighting for their next meal, and there's only one pie, and that there are a lot of hands grabbing at the dough there.
And, it's getting expensive now, man. It's not as cheap as people think to go out and try and play these tournaments. You wrap up your travel, your hotels, your caddies, your whatever, it's not cheap. So, you've got to want it. You've got to want to do it, and you've got to have support.
You've been all over the world. You've played what was then the Nike tour. So you've played in the US, you've played in Australia, you've played in Asia, you've played in Europe. Give me some wild stories, just some off the wall stuff. Like, you're not going to believe this, but this happened. Fill in the blank.
I mean, I don't know where to begin, Kevin, but I've had friends who have, picked up their rental cars, got their clubs from the airports, and they pull over somewhere to go to the restroom and get whacked on the head, and their car's gone, the clubs are gone, everything's gone. So I've had that one. I've got, probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen was I was playing a tournament in Spain, and alongside this long par three, it was like 235, and it was always into the wind, and it was always off the left. And on the left-hand side, there were cliffs. And, one of my playing companions hit it way left, right up against the edge of the cliff. And we're looking, two of us, others are looking at each other going like, no, he's not going to do this, surely. But sure enough, he tried to hit it, and, he's balancing, heels up off the edge of the cliff, and he hits this shot. And, we follow the ball. And all of a sudden, we see these arms waving, and he falls down the cliff, and we were freaking out. We were freaking out. I've never seen so many people run one direction in my life, and it was.
Was he okay?
Oh my God! Did it just happen? Oh yeah, he was fine. The cliff. It wasn't a sheer drop. Thank goodness. It went off. It kind of dropped in stages. It was like 8-10 feet down, and then ridges and plateaus, and then 8-10 feet down. But we didn't know that. We're standing over the other side. You don't really pay attention to the cliff. You're not looking at it. You're trying to look at the green. You don't want to look over there. So,
but he was okay. Did you make fun of him?
Totally fine. He was laughing. He was rolling on the floor. And we were over there, and we're looking down. Expecting horrors, and there he is, just sort of sitting on his butt, laughing his head off. And we're like, okay, now how the heck do we get you up? Like, that's the next problem. So we're holding golf clubs, and we're trying to pull it. It was crazy, man. It was I've never seen anything like that since.
And then you almost thought history was going to repeat itself when you saw Jordan Spieth on the 8th hole at Pebble Beach.
Yeah, I don't think people know how steep that.
Oh, it's more than 10 feet or whatever your buddy.
For sure. And I was there with one of my players at the Women's US Open in 24, and I was so happy to see the girls playing Pebble Beach. Really, I mean, I don't think people realize how good the girls on the LPGA really are. I mean, I don't think they really do. And I got close enough to that edge to not want to get any closer, and to see. I think it was Jordan Spieth, wasn't it? Play that shot. And
it was Jordan Spieth, yeah.
Oh my goodness, I was like, this could go wrong very quickly. And when he hit it and he balanced back, I was like, oh, thank goodness. Yeah. But that took some serious skill. Let me tell you something. That was not an easy golf shot that he pulled off.
And some balls or stupidity. I don't know what.
Do it.
I'm glad he's okay. Hey, you mentioned the LPGA. Two names that I want to talk about. I'm just going to preview it a little bit. Jessica and Nelly Korda, your relationship with them and the work that you did with them. But tell me the hole-in-one story. The hole-in-one story, the shank that turned into a hole-in-one.
Yeah. So we're playing a Parkland course in England, and you got all these grown branches kind of hanging over the edges of the green. It was a very narrow shot, actually. And my playing companion, I mean, he semi shanked it. I mean, he hit it so far off the heel, it didn't even look like it was going anywhere near the green. And it goes off into the trees, and we're kind of like shell shocked that he hit the shot, because he was pure. When he never missed the middle ever, and apparently this one time he did, and ping pongs off into the trees, and he's looking very disgruntled on the tee, and sure enough, all of a sudden his ball pops out on the green, and it rolls up into the hole. He made a hole in one off a woody, like ping ponged off the tree. It was ridiculous. I mean, I've never seen anything like that either.
I haven't either.
That just happened. I mean, he was almost embarrassed that it happened. You know, it was kind of funny.
I got one for you. One of my dear friends, Mr. Riley, and his two sons, Willie and Hugh, who are PGA pros. Mr. Riley, he had great stories. He played the South American Tour and also in the Philadelphia section. He told the story of a guy, he sculled a shot, it went over the green, hit a milk truck, came back, and right into the hole. So that's my crazy hole in one. I mean they
golf,
could happen
right?
different ways.
Literally. Anything can happen in golf. Anything. I mean, I've seen guys flush top it 20 yards and then still make birdie. And it's like, how did that happen? You know, whop it up the fairway, hole a wedge. I mean, it's just, you just never know what's going to happen, which is why you can never quit. You can't ever quit in this game. You got to keep your chin up and keep going.
Well said. Well, you know about perseverance, not just on the golf course, but in life.
Yeah. We'll
get into that. I mentioned the Korda sisters. You worked with them for quite some time. Nellie's story just is very well told. Jessica, one time, I believe, was ranked as high as 8th in the world. What is it about them, aside from being great athletes and having a good pedigree with mom and dad being professional tennis players, but you would know better than anyone. What was it like working with them?
That was a blast. It was so much fun. I mean, they've got so much feel and so much talent. I mean, how could it not be fun? But I mean, they do have an incredible pedigree. You know, I mean, they were always working. You know, even the rest was active rest. You know, they were always conditioning themselves, always working on preventative maintenance. They were always, you know, looking at the big pictures, looking for the bigger tournaments, trying to take steps forward to greater goals, and not necessarily get caught up in the little stuff. You know, so I know Peter was very instrumental, as was Regina. You know, they're fantastic family, and they produced 3 professional sports children. You know, so I mean, what more can you say? I mean, obviously it works.
Do they just have the burn? Is that just in them? And will you tell me, with competitive golfers, can they be motivated, or it just always comes from within?
You know, I mean, there's always a drive. I think. I mean, there's always a I can do better motivator, and you know, they hit their rough patches the same as anyone else. You know, I mean, there's times where people just like, you know, I just don't want to play. I want to quit. I don't want to do it. And then they kind of imagine their lives without it, or they take a break and they're like, no, I've got to keep doing this. And, you know, the girls they've just tremendous talent. Number one, tremendous patience. Number two, even if they get it, you know, I mean, I know Jess had some times where she was a little hot-headed, but I promise you, she was a very, very level young lady and woman when I was with her, and they, you know, I mean, they can feel the differences of ounces, you know, grams, just no problems, you know, and when you're that connected to your tools of your trade, you know, I think. You know, making those micro adjustments, those little 2-inch or 1-inch movements in the backswing or the takeaway or the whatever it may be, balancing in the feet, you know, they just gravitated to the adjustments. You know, they knew what they were looking for. As soon as you say, "Yep, that's what we're looking for," they knew what it was. They knew how to move towards it, and they knew how to move to that direction. And I think just about anyone in that professional space to that level has that ability.
Yeah, they're just playing a different game than the average golfer would ever know, because they're so in tune with their bodies, they're so in tune with their equipment, they're so athletic, they're so driven, and that's why they're as good as they are. You have another student that did you want to finish something?
Well, I was just going to say, and they also know when to disconnect. You know, I mean, as amateurs, they stay attached to the shot and the results way too long. You know, as professionals, of course, we're looking for results, but ultimately your process drives your consistency and your result pattern, right? So, you know, can we modify that? Can we use equipment and you know, flight scopes, TrackMan, whatever, you know, can we use all that stuff to our advantage these days? Sure. And there's an abundance of shafts out there now that can accommodate just about anyone. But, you know, you still have to have the feel.
It's all feel. And you mentioned like weight. Like I'll never forget the story about Tiger Woods when they made him 3 identical drivers and he said, no, this one's off. And then they weighed it, and like the difference in weight between the 1 and the 2 was like the weight of a dollar bill. Just take a dollar bill, hold it in your hand. Who can feel that? I mean, nobody can.
Jessica could actually feel that. We actually tried it with her, you know, blindfold, and she could put a dollar bill on the top of a driver and she could feel it. You know, so I mean, it is possible.
Was that because of the Tiger story that you tried that?
No, Jessica did it before anything. I even knew about the Tiger story. You know, I know that sounds sheltered, but you know, I mean, I was just impressed that, you know, the ability to pick up on such a small thing. You know, when you start changing weights in the bottom, maybe drivers and the back edges and whatever, you can feel them for sure. But, you know, I mean, a dollar bill really isn't a lot.
Yeah, I don't think I could feel the difference. I think I have good feel, but I don't think I could feel that. That's why my name is not on my golf bag like it is on other people. Let's talk about your playing career. You were on a pretty good run, and then something very unfortunate happened. You were involved in a serious accident in Portugal. What happened?
Yeah, you know, so I was fortunate enough to work with David Leadbetter under him to try to change my game and develop, and I was fortuitous enough to play with Justin Rose out at Lake Nona, you know, now and then, and you know, the games really started under David's tutelage, you know, or instruction, sorry. You know, it really started to turn, and I went back to Europe, and I got on a pretty hot streak. I shot my tournament low was 62. So, you know, I could go low, and I learned how to go low because of David. You know, I sort of struggled to break past that sort of 4 or 5 under mark before, and you know, found a way. So that was really exciting for me, you know. And yeah, unfortunately, when I was over in Portugal, I got run over by a car one evening after celebrating one of my friend's engagement parties. I just played golf that day, shot a pretty low score, and then got run over as a pedestrian that night. You know, the police report indicated between 45 and 65 miles an hour impact speed, and I was a pedestrian. So yeah, it hurt. The car then tried to reverse on top of me twice, and it did. So the tire came up over here, just underneath my chin. Fortunately, not on my neck. It was right on my sternum and on my rib cage. And he just rolled up over my left arm, up onto my chest, and stopped, and then rolled off, and then, you know, rolled back up and rolled off again. And all the time I'm trying to push off with this arm, and I'm shouting, you know, help and stop in as many languages as I knew at the time. And, you know, I remember rolling my head off to the left and just watching him drive away, you know. But I had some crazy experiences from that.
Yeah,
you know,
were
spiritually
how long?
and physically.
Let's talk about that. You were in the hospital for how long?
I think it was about 2 days short of 6 months in Portugal. I had to have multiple operations before I was fit to flying to get medvac back to England. I had, you know, broken bones all over the place, and fortunately none of the big 3, not my neck, back, or pelvis, fortunately, and I have no idea how, based off of that impact speed, but there was a lot of other damage. So 6 months of hospital bed and getting into a wheelchair, and then wheelchair back in England for about another 6 months, and then, you know, started learning how to walk again. And they tried to get me up to walk in Portugal, and that's when they realized that, you know, one of my legs was broken, and that fixed itself. And then as I tried to stand up on the other, they realized that I had a gastrocnemial tear of nearly 4 inches. It was 3.8 inches, I think, and that was 8-10 weeks after the accident, to let the other leg repair. And I stood up, and my foot went literally black. I mean, it was so dark. And it was I think that may have hurt more than actually getting hit by the car. The car was so quick, you know?
Oh my God. So, but to skip a couple steps, it was what, about 2.5 years before you were able to walk somewhat properly again? And then.
Yeah. 2.5 years before I could walk unaided. Yeah. And I went back to work actually on walking sticks. You know, when I was in the hospital bed in Portugal, you know, a lot of people would call, you know, Nick would call, my family would call, and, you know, David would call, and David called almost every day. You know, it was
David
really a surprise
Leadbetter
to me. Yeah. And
every
I remember
day
after the accident, I said to the doctors, I was like, listen, no one can talk to my mum. My father died 2 months before I got hit by the car, just suddenly of a heart attack. And so she nearly lost half the family in 2 months. So I said, no, you know, doctors can't call her. I have to talk to her first. I have to tell her that I'm okay, I'm alive. And, you know, she was already going through an unbelievably difficult time.
And golf, just the thought of it, returning to it, that got you through a lot of dark times. I mean, was that, aside from wanting to be well, I mean, how big of a motivator was it to get back on the golf course, or at least on the instructional tee?
Yeah, I mean, huge. I mean, David, you know, said to me, you know, in the hospital, he's like, you know, Grant, don't worry, you know, come work for me. You know a ton about golf and the golf swing, and you know an awful lot more than some people I know who are in the industry. So come work for me. So, you know, I always had something to look forward to. And, you know, I remember going back to work for him, and I was using 2 walking sticks literally to get out to the tee. And it was never a problem. It was always, you know, people always understood. And, you know, if anything, they were surprised I was there doing it with that. But it was a huge motivator for me. I mean, I was in a Portuguese hospital for nearly 6 months, and I didn't speak Portuguese or Spanish, you know. So, I mean, the only English interaction I would have was when the doctor did his rounds and whoever called me, you know, and it was a very difficult time mentally, you know, and to have some fortitude to get through that was very tough. And fortunately, you know, my best friend flew over at the time and dropped off my laptop from the house, and, you know, packed everything up, took it all back to England, and he left me with a laptop and DVDs, and some of them were golf DVDs and some of them were just comedy DVDs. And frankly, you know, that it kept
it
my
took
spirits.
Your mind. Yeah. It kept your spirits up, and it took your mind off. It was a break from the worry.
You know what? Sometimes, you know, when you focus like that, you don't feel the pain either. You know, like sometimes I would get so focused on what was going on, I would forget where I was until I moved. And then I was sharply reminded. But it really helped. I mean, like really, really helped. And you know, I didn't want to give up the game. I didn't want to stop playing at all. I was motivated to keep going, and I wanted to keep going, and I wanted to try to get back to playing golf. It just took, you know, significantly longer than I would have liked. And, you know, that's when, you know, when I hear of stories like the chap in what is it? The cycling in Paris at the minute. Talk to me about that. I just blanked.
Somebody that was injured in an accident.
Yeah, cycling accident, and he's you know, he's competing in the Tour de France, and 8 months after he got hit, he hit a bus, you know, and the pain, just learning how to walk again. Kevin, I can't even explain it. I mean, my hat goes off to all the, you know, all the injured people in the world who are learning how to walk again. It's a very painful experience. Hey? Very painful.
Well, you would know. You would know.
You know, and you just got to keep going. You know, the tears flow, and you just push and you push and you push, and sometimes you get down and sometimes you don't. And that's why you need these things to kind of drive you and motivate you and keep you on the right path, you know. And fortunately for me, that was golf.
It was golf. It was friendship. Yeah. It was love. Yeah. So you recover from that. I know you still have some residual leftovers from that, but then you had a bout of testicular cancer, which you beat, but that knocked you on your back again. Did golf once again, was that kind of the driving thing to keep you in a positive frame of mind?
So, I had young kids at the time. So for me, it was kids too, my family. I didn't want to quit for them. I wanted to be there for them. I was at complete peace going through that recovery, and I don't know how to explain that. I was never nervous once, and I don't know why, and I don't know how, but I was at complete peace all the way through that process, and it wasn't fun. I mean, chemo's terrible. I mean, it really is brutal. I think the last 2 or 3 bouts of chemo I had, I was in a clean room. I had a 0.1 white cell count, and if my kids wanted to come in, they had to mask up and put gowns on, and gloves and everything. I mean, any family member, anything. It was a very trying experience, but I wanted to get better for my family. I wanted to be there for my family. I wanted to provide for my family. I didn't want to go out with young kids and and wonder how they were and wonder what was going on in the world, and of course that for me was golf. It was get back to golf, get back to teaching, get back to playing, get back to anything involved in the game. And I had some pretty major surgeries. Obviously, I had an orchiectomy to get rid of it in the first place, but then I had to have a lymph node dissection down my torso to remove more lymph nodes that were in there. And, dissection like a frog, in biology.
Man, you're like the bionic man with
crazy,
everything you've and like you've put back together and rebuilt better. I don't know, but you keep fighting.
I feel here, Kevin, but there's a reason.
Yeah. Well, you have the fighting. Go ahead. You have the fighting spirit. That's what I was going to say. But also the attitude that things are going to get better.
This too shall pass, Kevin. Right? This too shall pass. And when you face adversity, sometimes it's crushing. And I think the first time you ever face it, it's probably crushing for everyone. And then you learn how to handle it. Right? I mean, there's perspective when you start looking at the bigger things, and you say, okay, well, I just want to survive it, number one, right? And then I want to get back to golf, and then I want to get back to providing for my children. I want to see my children grow up, and the one thing I really had that was a blessing through all of that was I had a lot of time with my kids. I spent a lot of time working and going through chemo and going through cancer. I spent a lot of time with my children, watching them grow up when they were little. And I probably wouldn't have had that if I was just working the whole time, So I'm sure it must have been very difficult for my then wife, to watch that and watch me go through that and watch the kids go through that. But my family was a huge motivator for me, and getting back to golf to provide for my family was a huge motivator also. And I don't think I've ever done anything without looking towards the game of golf. I mean, it's truly embedded.
It's who you are. It's your purpose in life. And the perspective you have from being hit by the car and then dealing with cancer. Well, you tell me, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. Do you feel that gave you the perspective you appreciate having to have gone through it? Never want to go through it again, but it gave you just a greater appreciation for all you have in life. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, there was, how do I say this? It's almost like one prepared for the other, So like there was this preparation effect to that. You had to learn patience, you had to learn resilience, you had to learn to fight, and prepare you for the next battle. And I think we all kind of have that. And I think that's why we need to push. And then, when I was recovering from that lymph node dissection, I was unable to work for a good long while. But, I remember going out and sitting with Jessica and Nellie at the Ritz-Carlton in Sarasota on the back range in a cart. And I could sit in the cart and I could still work. I could still critique. I could still do things. I could still help. And that felt like it gave me purpose. Right. And it was and then Jessica won 2 tournaments while I was working with her, the Pure Silk Bahamas. I remember that one. And she was talking about, a coach had cancer. That was me, and kind of made me weep a little bit when I heard her talking about me, that it was very touching. And then she went on and won another one. I think it was the Airbus after that. Right. So she, I mean, it was it was nice to see that I still had a purpose.
Yeah, and the satisfaction of knowing that your help helped them achieve the success that they've been longing for and striving for their whole lives. I want to talk about one of your other students. The name isn't as familiar as the Korda sisters, but the score, I'm sure most people have heard about the 57, Cristobal
Del Solar.
Del Solar.
Yeah.
Okay, crazy swing. Okay, just YouTube it. All right. Did you work on that swing, or did you just, like Jim Furyk's dad said, just that's your most natural swing, go with it? What was the experience with Cristobal?
So, well, we met at IMG. Cristobal came over to IMG. I was coaching out at IMG at the time, and he just had a great attitude. You know, there's a few players that go through there, and you can spot them, and you can see they're going to be good players. You know, I mean, there was Pan, there was Emiliano, you know, there was Rick Lamb, there's Cristobal, and there's tons of others, you know. But yeah, he's a very unique swinger of the golf club, you know. And there's a few things I think that were his real fingerprint. And I think if you were to attack them, or you were to modify those, you would have done more damage than good, you know. And he always had great feel. He always had great rhythm. He always had a great attitude. Sometimes it was a little bit too bold, but obviously, you know, you can't score low without being bold and aggressive. So, you know, when you're young and you don't get scared of stuff and you just keep pushing, you know, it's hard as a coach to watch sometimes, but it's actually a very positive skill set to have, to know, you know, see someone pull a 3-wood and rip it 280 at a pin tucked right on a par 5. You know, if they know they're going to hit that shot, you know, you got to let them hit the shot, you know.
I might have interfered and said the center of the green looks real good right about now, but
really good to me from there,
especially from 280.
You know, oh my gosh, you know, Emiliano Grillo is a great ball striker. You know, I've seen him hit some crazy shots too. You know, drivers off decks, 3-woods to tight pins, and I've seen you know, Cristobal always had flair. He always had that fire, you know, and just a great player, really a great player. To see him starting to succeed and break through now, it's really fun.
Oh yeah, yeah, and to see, like, just there are a lot of different ways to swing the golf club, and if that way works for you, then stay with it. Grant Price is our guest here on Party Time, my golf story, brought to you by Party Drinks. If you're looking for a good drink alternative on the golf course aside from the usual fare, then try Party. And if your dream is to live in beautiful Southwest Florida, especially on the Sun Coast, and your dream is to live in a golf resort community, nobody better than the golf real estate pros at suncoastdreams.com, a division of Fine Properties. Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro, they're the people to take care of you. So let's talk about the next step. Well, let's talk about the now and what the future is for you. Right now, you're the director of instruction at Waterleaf Golf Club. Very cool place right along the Manatee River.
Great golf course.
Yep. How's that going?
Great golf course. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's gone very nicely. You know, they've been very supportive. I have a lot of fun with the guys out there, the members, and a lot of people that come in to see us, and they don't realize how good that golf course really is, you know. And that's going nicely. And I've just released online now with a website, grandpricegolf.com. You know, we've got a video instruction on there, and yeah, we're moving along nicely.
So that's really the next step. You're at Waterleaf for a while, but you're bringing on new players, and you're still working with a lot of good pros. You got a pretty good stable.
Yeah, and some of the amateurs are really good too, Kevin. You know, I mean, some of the Canadian internationals and the European internationals are really, really good. So, I mean, I've just flown under the radar a long time. You know, so I want to get up online. I want to get out there. I want to get a little bit more, knowledge out into the space and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you've studied under the best. You've been a part of around greatness with players, people you've instructed, playing golf with your uncle, working for David Leadbetter. So you said it's time to unleash your own. Is that fair? Is that what we're doing?
Fair, very fair.
Do you think, Grant, with your website and just how golfers are consuming golf, learning golf now, is the internet like the stepping in point before like the actual lesson on the tee? Is that how it's going? Is that where the game is?
It's so powerful right now. I mean, I can literally communicate with players halfway across the globe on FaceTime or whatever app we're using, and literally do a lesson right there and then on the tee with them. You know, I mean, it's if you understand your players, if you have connection with your players, it's very you're on the same wavelength. You can communicate, you can do what you need to do. And the world's a very small place nowadays, but you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of conflicting information out there, and if you're going to, you know, enter that world, you want to enter it with, you know, as simpler information as possible, right? I mean, the way of the modern game now is we have all this technology, we have an overload and an abundance of information and technology, but ultimately, we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. Right, we're trying to produce something that is natural, you know, like Cristobal's swing is a fingerprint, right? We got to keep that ultimate fingerprint, and learning how to take some of the most important parts of the game. If you can kind of get ahead of it and you can study it while you're away from your coach and you're on the tee and practicing. I mean, you can pull your phone up now and pull up all these, you know, instructional videos, and you can have your earpieces in and you can be doing it right there and then on the tee, and you're staying focused, you're staying, you know, on point with what you're trying to do with coach. You know, it's a very powerful tool if used correctly.
Yes, and I like how you use the word simplicity. Embrace technology, use it for its benefits, but just remember, stay athletic, keep it simple. If there's a better way, I don't know what it is. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I try to literally keep it as simple as possible with all my players. I mean, they don't need to know all those numbers. They don't need to know all the jargon behind everything. They need to know, okay, you know, what's my face doing? What's the spin rate doing? What's the launch doing? What's the carry doing? You know, they need the simplicity of the game. If you start trying to think of too many variables when you're on a golf course and you're under pressure, forget it. I mean, just doing it on the golf course is hard enough. You right. Take the environment and the pressure and you apply it, and it's a whole different world, right? And you look right. at the Open. I mean, this was a fantastic tournament to watch adversity. You know, the tee times were very much the flip flops. You know, with the good weather, the bad weather. And, you know, to see some of the leaders getting hit with all the bad weather and being resilient and pushing forward. And Royal Troon is not an easy golf course, you know, to watch them push forward, you know, not only did it show the mindset, but the simplicity of how they know their golf game, you know, even in the rain, even in the wind, you know, they could still feel out what they were trying to do. And then you watch Xander going down, you know, the last 9 holes. And I mean, everything just looked so simple. Yeah. You know, I mean, he just
simple works.
Just
simple works.
And I know Nelly commented that one time as well after one of her big wins. You know, she was like, I'm just trying to stay in the bubble. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible. And, you know, when you're in your own little world and you're doing what you're doing and you're successful, keep doing what you're doing. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to try to make it any harder. Make it simpler, you know?
Right.
Make the game
don't reinvent the wheel. No. Right. Exactly. No. The KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Exactly. Yes. Hey, Grant, listen, I really enjoyed talking to you. I kept you a little bit longer than I said I would, but I did so because you're a fascinating person. I love your story. I love your passion for the game, your fight, your will to live, for one, and just your desire to pass it forward, to pay it forward, and share your knowledge with everybody. So you got to come back sometime. You cool with that?
Oh, absolutely, Kevin. Yeah, thanks for having me on. And there's, I know we've got an awful lot more to talk about. I know that we just kind of brushed the surface there a bit, really. But yeah, I mean, I would love to come back on. And you're right. I mean, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it, because that's really what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to keep the information moving forward and improve everyone's game as best I can and help in any way I can. I just love doing what I do. So I can't wait to just keep moving on to the next level.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say thank you to David and to Nick and to everyone who's helped me along my journey. You know, I'm very respectful and appreciative of them as well. And, you know, you got to keep your circle tight. Keep your friends close and just keep life as simple as possible and always have a smile, man. Just try to find the positive in anything. And I think that can make a huge difference in your game. Just forget your life, it can do everything in your game as well.
Your game and your life, because for some of us, they're so intertwined, like you and me and all your students and all the people that watch this show and listen to us. All right, Grant, let's say goodnight.
You got to like who's looking back in the mirror, right? So at the end of the day,
amen.
If you're unhappy, you got to take the steps to change it. Be happy, smile in the mirror, like who's looking back, and just enjoy life. I mean, I've nearly lost it so many times that I'm absolutely determined to try to see the silver side of the clouds. You got to see the shining light and just enjoy it.
Yeah, and let it come from within you. Let it shine elsewhere. And you would know better than anybody. You have all the credibility in the world. Grant, thanks so much. Good luck with the website. Let's keep in touch. I want to thank our sponsors, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative, Party is a drink for you. You probably saw scrolling across the bottom places where it's located. And also a big thanks to the Golf Real Estate Pros. If your dream is to live in the greater Sarasota area, nobody better than Vince Vizzacaro and Gene Walsh from suncoastdreams.com, a division of Fine Properties. For Grant Price, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you again next time on Party Time, My Golf Story.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay.
You've been listening to It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers, and the Golf Real Estate Pros Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com or call 941-220-4000.
This is Vince Vizzacaro and Gene Walsh with the suncoastdreams.com real estate team at Fine Properties. We've helped hundreds of families find their dream homes in golf and resort communities in Lakewood Ranch, Bradenton, Sarasota, Parrish, Venice, and the surrounding areas.
Let us be your guides to finding your dream home here as well. Learn more at suncoastdreams.com or call us at 941-220-4000.